Thurgood Marshall. Thurgood Marshall was born in 1908 in Baltimore, Maryland. He was African American, and his grandfather was a former enslaved person. By the time Thurgood was born, slavery was against the law. Thurgood grew up with both black and white neighbors, but in many states, people were segregated. In the South, black people were not allowed to eat in many restaurants that served white people. They were not allowed to sit in the same train car as the white people. Black children in the South were not allowed to go to school with the white children. They couldn't even drink from the same water fountains, yet the Supreme Court, the highest court in the land, had made segregation legal. It decided that the restaurants, trains, school, parks, and hotels were separate but equal. In fact, though places were not equal, and those laws were unfair, at the dinner table, Thurgood family used to argue about what to do about the laws. Thurgood became very good at arguing. Thurgood liked pranks and got into his fair share of the trouble of growing up. His punishment in high school was often about to memorize in the U.S. Constitution. Before I left that school, I knew the whole thing by heart. Fuller said, yes, of some idea in the Constitution did not hold true in his own life. Farragut thought the rights in the Constitution should apply to everyone. He felt that the law in some states that segregated black Americans went against the idea of the laws before it in the Constitution. He realized that by becoming a lawyer, he could use the laws to help black Americans achieve equality. After graduating from Lincoln University, an all-black college in Pennsylvania, Marshall wanted to attend the University of Maryland Law School. Because of his race, the school would not let him in. Instead, he went to the all-black law school at Howard University in Washington, D.C. He graduated at the top of his class in 1933. The next year, he began to work as a lawyer. In 1936, he won the first big victory for civil rights. It was against the University of Maryland Law School, the same school that Marshall had wanted to attend. Another black student had also been denied admission to the law school because of his race. The student took the school to court, saying that school discrimination was illegal. Marsh argued the case and won. Marshall was just 32 when he began arguing cases for the Supreme Court. In one case, he argued against segregated neighborhoods. He said that people of other races should be allowed to purchase homes within white neighborhoods. Marshall argued another case about segregation on buses and trains. He said that black and white people should be able to ride together. Marshall won these and many other cases for civil rights. In 1954, Marshall argued his most important case of all, Brown Board of Education. At that time, many states spent far less money on black students than on white students. Black students in those states had to attend all black schools, even when they lived miles closer to an all white school. Black students in crowded schools were not allowed to attend white schools with empty classrooms. In many places, you could not ride buses to school, even when a bus for white children passed their door every day. Marsh argued that it was unfair to have separate schools for black children and white children. They argued that separate was not equal. The only way to gain equality was to allow children of all races to attend the same public schools. Marshall won his cases. Every justice on the Supreme Court voted to end school segregation. He, that decision helped end other kinds of segregation in the United States as well. It inspired the civil rights movement. It took place over the next decade. It also made Marshall famous. In all, Marshall argued 32 cases before the Supreme Court and won 29 of them. He became the first black lawyer to argue cases for U.S. government before the Supreme Court. In 1967, President Lyndon Johnson chose Marshall to be a justice on the Supreme Court. He became the first black justice to ever serve on the highest court of the United States. Justice Marshall still got to argue a lot, and he always argued to make things fair. He upheld the rights of children, women, homeless people, and people in prison. Justice served on Supreme Court for life. Justice Marshall wanted to stay on the court as long as he could so that his voice could continue to be heard. Marshall served on the court for 24 years. In 1991, at age 83, he retired. At that time, reporters asked him if black Americans were better than when he joined the court. All Americans are better off since I joined the court. Marshall said all of them. He died 2 years later. Marshall believed in the American legal system. He believed that it was the root of equality in the country that only law would bring permanent, uh, permanent change. He thought the right laws would even change the minds of her and hearts of some people. Thurgood Marshall changed the country not just for black Americans but for people of all races. His ideas about the Constitution advanced justice, freedom, opportunity for everyone.